Welcome everyone to what is this now? Episode 3 of the SWU Report podcast. Today I'm repping an LA hat. I thought, might as well show off the collection. My wife complains enough about all the ones that I have, so let's actually put them to use. Then she has more reason to accept that I have them. So you may also notice something a little different this time around. It is not just me. That being Will, or Kenan, if you float around in several kind of online forums and the like. But I think shows are probably much more engaging with some guests, some co hosts, that sort of thing. So I wanted to start kind of trying that sort of thing out. Mutual friend put me in touch with this lovely gentleman here, Alex, um, as somebody that might be interested in that sort of thing. And come to find out, at least up until I believe recently, we were relatively close to each other in the scheme of things in the U.S. So, Alex, why don't you lay it on me? What's a little bit of your history with gaming and getting into SWU?
Yeah, absolutely. And you first of all, yes, you're correct. I was living in St. Louis until a little over a year ago now. So um, just missed each other for that purpose. And now I'm in Minnesota. But yeah, personal gaming history. I grew up playing games. My dad was a gamer in the '70s, and so when he had kids, he decided that was a great chance to be able to run a D&D game again. He was also a big chess player, so I grew up playing chess. Um, so that was kind of the initiation for me into gaming. And then kind of growing up, we did like some hobby games. Like my dad had the old like 1980 Civilization board game, the old
Oh,
1977 War of the Ring board game, which the current one is not based off of because it
oh,
can't be legally based off of, but definitely has some
ah,
inspiration from, though they're both obviously inspired by Tolkien's works. But that's kind of what I grew up with. For me, being a child of the 80s, I kind of grew into the TCG era, so the early TCG era. So I played, a little bit of Magic, a little bit of Pokemon when it first came out. Um, Touched a bunch of other TCGs, Babylon 5, Overpower,
oh.
the Star Trek TCG or CCG, and then the Decipher Star Wars CCG. And that was the Decipher Star Wars was probably the one I played the most, partially because of content, but
I'm
also
so sorry.
partially because I just like the complicated game. It's not a good TCG, but it's an interesting combo building game. Uh, so I did that, and then went off to college, and it was more casual board gaming and things like that. But then in 2017, December of 2017, um, I should let's pull back a bit. About 2015, I made the decision that I was really interested in the game industry, and I was still playing like board games casually as a hobby. But I started just really being interested in the gaming industry. So I did a lot of research. I was in the St. Louis at the time, and a couple of companies that I learned about were Greater Than Games and Stonemaier Games. And it Greater Than Games is known for or was known for Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is
Oh,
not a TCG but
that
cooperative
is
deck game. There's a lot of
so good.
similar,
I love that
yes.
one.
So I got to know those companies and then the people of the companies. And then December of 2017, I started working initially at Greater Than Games, but they were doing warehousing and sales for Stonemaier at the time. And
Oh, okay.
so I became the liaison between the two companies.
Hmm.
And then a few years later, I moved over to Stonemaier to handle sales and logistics. And so now I'm the COO there. So that's my day job, which partially means board games are always work for me. They're still
Ah,
fun, but they're always work.
hmm.
So then, when the initial pre-release for set one of SWU came out, I had a friend who dragged me to a pre-release, and I had been, I will happily do a draft event or a pre-release of any TCG, but I don't need to get into a game. But a friend dragged me to that pre-release, and I just fell in love instantly. I was like, "Oh, this is my game." And
Hmm.
so I've been playing since then. I saw it from a distance at several conventions before then, but I was like, that's a TCG. I'm not interested. But then as soon as I actually played it, I was like, yeah, this is different. And I've been playing ever since. I have one PQ win under my belt at your local Springfield set three.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh,
Congrats. What were you playing for that one? I forget now.
I was playing Anakin Blue
Okay.
at the time. Let's see, I'm trying to think. The Han one Yellow, and Sabine ECL were the kind of the big ones to beat at the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that went well. This year, I've only attended three PQs for this season, so I'm going to be physically at Galactics, but I will be doing the last chance qualifier. So
You and several hundred other people, I think.
indeed,
So good luck. Good luck.
yeah, thanks.
I admit going X and one, what is it, 7-1 or something, is going to be
Yeah,
a tall order, but good luck, sir.
yeah. I mean, I have friends who are there for side events, and they have told me that they are hoping that I fail so that I will do side events with them Saturday, Sunday. So it'll be
Yeah.
fun either way.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Bombing out in day one last year, and then blowing
Mhm.
that on side events the rest of the day was honestly a pretty great feeling. Aside from
Mhm.
the line simulator game, but we don't
Uh,
necessarily need to rehash that at this point.
right.
So,
I think
well,
FFG has learned their lesson. They have hired third parties to help manage those sort of things. So hopefully that will be better.
yeah, yeah. I hope that's definitely better. I've definitely seen some of the kind of recruiting calls for people
Mhm.
to do that stuff. So I hope they've managed to get a good crew in
Mhm.
for that. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, same.
Well, we are attempting this over a lunch hour, give or take. So let's turn our attention toward what we've got coming up for this episode. So I admit uh, I didn't discuss this up front maybe as well with Alex as I could have. This is going to be a little bit of a learning experience with me as well. Not to dwell on it too hard, but the prior life, prior podcast, and all, man, I had been casting with those guys for umpteen years, and we just kind of knew how we handled stuff. So new folks, lesson learned. Let's talk it out and spell it out a little beforehand. But Alex said he was willing and interested to just be surprised while we go.
Mhm.
So the topic was his idea. The format will be mine. So, what is the topic this week, Alex?
So the topic is the 18 new set 8 leaders, and how we think they are going to do in Premiere format specifically.
Yes, indeedy. Ashes of the Empire is here, or at least the full set. Spoilers are here. So we're just going to go through them in numerical order. We've got some tabs pulled up here in SWU so we can just click through as we go. And we're going to give some thoughts, some feedback on how they look, what we are interested or not about them. And I'm going to really put Alex on the spot here. When we did card reviews on the white book, we actually used, as we always called it then, because we had two teachers on the show, the American grading system of cards. So A through F, A being the best, F being the worst. And because it's ubiquitous everywhere now, if something truly surprises us, we did occasionally throw out an S tier there. Of course, pulled from I believe fighting games originally, but it's
Mhm.
used everywhere in gaming these days. So, gonna put you on the spot to grade some stuff, and then here's the really fun part, Alex. This is the part that's
Mhm.
bit me in the butt several times. Then a month down the road, folks get to come back and tell you, "Hey, you rated that card as a D, and it is rockin' face. That is an S. You suck." So, we get to look forward to that.
Oh, perfect. I enjoy being wrong. It's always interesting and it's a learning experience. So let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we're clicking in on the armorer here, and
Mhm.
we're gonna have both the video and the audio feed on this. So let's go ahead and read these cards as we go. I know
Mhm.
I've already been doing a lot of the talking, so let's maybe alternate as we go through the cards, whose opportunity it is to read them up front. And I'm going to go
Mhm.
ahead and let you start with card number one, Alex.
All right. So the armorer, who is blue green. So her leader side. So she has an action, no cost other than an action to exhaust her. Play an upgrade from your resources on a unit that entered play this phase, paying its cost. If you do, resource the top card of your deck. And then she flips on 5 and is a 4/6, and essentially has similar ability. When attack ends, you may play an upgrade from your resources on a friendly unit, so no longer a limitation of it coming into play this turn. If you do, resource the top card of your deck. And yeah, the armor, in some ways it's nice. It's essentially giving you additional cards, um, and I think she has a nice place for the person who struggles with resourcing.
Mm,
It just makes that really simple for you. Um, but it is, at the end of the day, it's fairly limited, and at this point, my feeling is that the multicolored cards, like leaders, are at a bit of a disadvantage. Usually, heroism and villainy is where the best cards are. So things like, yeah, she can have 3 colors, but she's not going to get Luke's lightsaber from this set, for example. Um,
mhm.
so because of that, I kind of put her as a C tier. I don't think she's going to be terrible, but she's more of a friendly for a newer player rather than being this just going to be a top tier anything you're going to see at a PQ.
Okay. I mean, I think those are reasonable takes. I've got a soft spot for these dual aspect
Mhm.
leaders and dual aspect cards. So I'm maybe overly optimistic there. I think she's got a very reasonable stat line on 5, having that base 4 attack
Mhm.
is pretty solid. And I'm really excited about some of the flexibility here. Not only I think you made a great observation about kind of the resourcing kind of analysis paralysis, which
Mhm.
I've definitely been guilty of sometimes. But I think it is worth noting the flexibility on her leader side. That yes, the unit has to have entered play this phase, but it does not necessarily have to be your unit,
Mhm.
which really opens up some flexibility there. I mean, I love the thought of my opponent deploying their leader so that I can immediately kill switch it out of my
Mhm.
resources, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, Things like that. Obviously, on the unit side, now you kind of switch gears to kind of Voltroning your own stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but even with, and I acknowledge losing um, heroic and villainy is a big hit for any of these dual leaders. I almost feel like the armorer is one that impacts the least. There are still some really strong options that are in what should we call it, the neutral variation of that color.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty excited about her and the essential card advantage she provides as you cycle stuff out. Right, she's
Mhm.
pseudo giving all of your upgrades scheme. Geez, uh, um, smuggle.
Smuggle.
Gosh,
Yeah.
gotta keep different game terminologies correct here. And I love smuggle. I loved
Mhm.
shadows in all iterations of Game of Thrones. So I think I'm willing to give the armorer a B, and
Mhm.
she's. I know you can make this argument with any leader, but I think she's one that really could jump depending on any new cards,
Oh, for
any
sure.
new upgrades that come out.
Right, yeah. I think I'm just thinking things like, she can't use craving power, she can't use Luke's lightsaber. Um, Even things like Hot Shot Blaster would be great with her, but it's I guess an internal. Um,
Right, right.
right. So there's a lot of in the current rotation, I feel like there's just not quite the juice for her.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's still some reasonable options. I think. I mean, I don't deny that those are really powerful, but the new whistling birds is viable. Mastery is
Mhm.
viable. Um, yeah, this is one we do not have to have the same opinion on. So I'll be excited to see how the season kind of plays out, which direction this winds up looking.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense to me.
All right. Well, I would say we could hammer on about this for a while, but we've got a bunch more leaders to go through. So let's kick it over to the
Mhm.
next one, unless you have anything pressing still on the armor.
No, I think that makes sense to me. Let's go talk about Fennec.
Let's do it. All right, Fennec Shand. She is a red and yellow leader. Action: pay one and exhaust a friendly unit. Play a unit from your hand, paying its cost. It enters play ready. Then she deploys on four. And when she does, she is a 3/4 with Saboteur and the same action. Pay one, exhaust a friendly unit, play a unit from your hand. It enters play ready. Like I said, I desperately want to like these dual aspect leaders. Some of you may have already seen. I wrote a deck tech and did a little bit of gameplay here, trying to make Fennec Shand work. And I'm gonna be honest here. That's pretty rough. 3/4 stat line is probably the worst that we've seen on leaders. It's just extremely fragile. 2/5 is much more favorable out of what we've seen out of other four deploy leaders. Um, and I think she's one where the lack of villainous and heroic aspect cards really hurts her, maybe the worst out of anything we've seen so far. Um, some of the well, really all of these other dual aspect leaders have gotten some cards uh, that do seem primed to try to make that deck archetype come together. So she's got Outcast in this set to make units that come into play, +1 attack for that phase. And it's a reasonable target to exhaust as a 1/4 body for two. But gosh, it just does not seem to come together. It's such a tempo
Mhm.
hit. This costs one, so you're playing a unit behind on curve in order to have it ready. But I mean, here's the thing: if you had played that unit on curve the turn before, it would be ready this turn
Mhm.
anyway. So it's net real hard to improve what she's got going on.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's that one cost, right? If it was no cost, if it was just an action, and even if on our leader side or her unit side, it was uh, once per turn or something, that would
Mhm.
be incredibly powerful, right? You get a 1/4 down, and now every turn your new unit is ready to go. But it's not. It costs a resource, and that is too expensive.
Yeah.
Um, it just doesn't like she looks like she wants to be an aggro leader. She flips at four. She has saboteur. She's readying things, but that slowdown just doesn't work in aggro, and I don't really see a solution to that. The only other thing I would think is like, are you playing her for as a late game leader because you want to be able to drop your big, I don't know, your mythosaur or something and have it ready? But
Mhm.
once again, the best late game cards are heroic and villainy, right? She can't drop a big Star Destroyer. She can't do pre Vizsla, any of those things, right?
Right.
Or is pre straight pre's villainy, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, okay.
sure we can pop over here and
I'm
run
just double
ourselves
guessing
a
myself here.
search.
Yeah, priest
Oh,
villainy.
whoops! I can't type. Vizsla with his. What am I? It is both a Z and an S. That's my problem.
Uh,
Yes. So yeah, villainy.
yeah. So a lot of those big late game bombs are outside of her colors, right? So it just makes it that much harder for her to try to build that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't see a place for her. So honestly, I think she's the F of this set.
Yeah. I realized I forgot to give her a grade, but I think I'm in agreement with you here. F.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's not blow too much time on the bottom of the heap. Let's move on to our next leader.
All right. So Baylan Skoll, blue villainy. Action, spend a resource and exhaust him to give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase if it's the only unit you control in its arena. Um, Flips at 5, also as a 4/6, same as the armor. And on attack, you give a friendly unit +2/+2 in Sentinel for this phase if it's the only non-leader unit for you control in its arena. So I think that honestly, the challenge with Baylan um, is that it is once again it's costing a resource. So there's that desire to like, are you slowing yourself down again? It does potentially fix curve, um, but how much is that +2/+2 doing? Um, and honestly, like I can see a place where Balin could be really really good, uh, but sort of as a preview to the current like meta, is that honestly I see Cad Bane showing up a lot, and the new
Mhm.
Cad Bane allows you to ping a damage onto a unit as long as it has more than one health left. So there's an interesting interaction where if Balin buffs a unit that had one health, now Cad can ping that unit, and then at the end of the phase, that unit dies. Well, as soon as it goes, that
Mhm.
loses a +2/+2. And so I think that actually gives him a really rough spot in what I kind of come seeing with the current meta. Um, but there's potential there. I think there is potential juice. It's interesting to have a blue aggro build. So I think I would fall into a C grade for him as well.
I think that's reasonable. I know we're keeping this one focused on Premiere, so I won't go down the limited road right now.
Mhm.
I will say I think he's got reasonable stats again, a base
Mhm.
4 attack on a 5 deploy. I'm certainly intrigued by, as you said, maybe something a bit more aggressive in vigilance villainy than we've seen before. Normally, they lean, let's say, very defensive and controlling. And I think there's a possibility here, though. On the other hand, I also sort of think his ability on the leader side and clearly on the unit side where it grants Sentinel, um, I think it also kind of looks to be the sort of ability that you could use to kind of muck up the ground, well, or space, to enact more of a later game controlling game plan. Um, Part of my initial thought is maybe this is a different route for Force decks to go in villainy that historically have been very light in space and maybe had some issues in that arena. And Balin potentially gives us a path here to include something minimal, but more than before, say, in the space arena, and get some real extra kind of value out of it and compete in that area. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, this is a character that I love. I think he's my favorite character, like new character of the Disney era. So I'm gonna try to make it work for sure. Um, but for all the reasons you listed, I hesitate to give him above a C as well in constructed.
Yeah, but it's we'll see. Maybe he's just missing a little bit of juice. A new set will bring something, or someone will just crack the build. But there's potential there.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. Pairing him with that new blue Shin, maybe you can
Hmm.
get an attack or two off with her at what Baylan plus her. She's going to be a 8/8 Sentinel on the R6 turn,
Hmm.
so that hits fairly heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what do we have next. I think this one's back to me to read, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Grand Admiral Thrawn, everybody's favorite blue guy, is, you guessed it, Vigilance Villainy, and has an action attack with a unit. It gains Restore 2 for this attack if you control the same number of units as the defending player. And when he deploys on 8, yeah, you heard that right, 8 resources, he is a 5/8 with Restore 2. And on attack, if you control more units than the defending player, you may defeat a non leader unit they control. You know, I find myself torn here. I also love Thrawn in a general sense, and Restore is a strong ability to stretch games out into the longer game plan that these vigilance villainy decks tend to favor. I will say though, 8 resources is a lot. You are really delaying that leader deploy so far in a game that I think really, really lives and thrives on R5 and R6 deploys. Um, Being a full 2 turns after that is rough. And I think we're also in kind of a weird spot, having to micromanage board presence and number of units. And there's some decks, some particularly kind of more aggro, go wide type of strategies, where you are just never going to be able to take care of this action. Right? You go up against Vader, and you are just never triggering this all game. Um, and then of course on his unit side, the unit matching now goes to needing to have a greater number of units, so the two don't strictly speaking align with each other. So I'm pretty worried that this, despite the 5/8 beefy stats, that this is just not going to come together. I hate to say this about Thrawn, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this Thrawn might be a D.
Okay, I think that might be where we're the furthest apart so far.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, so I am far from having uh, I would say, a good deck for this Thrawn yet. I would say that as in general, I'm a better pilot than I am a architect.
Hmm.
So there's definitely work for me to do, but I had been messing around with this deck some. Um, and he has some juice. The place, like you said, he where he really struggles is those aggro, like go wide aggro decks, especially in space. So your Vader deck, like you have to have good sideboard tech for that. And but there are cards to do that. There's you have your obviously you can get up to 7. You can clear the board, a hyperspace disaster. But even before that, there's a new card, deal 5 damage to your base and then 5 damage to what is it, every unit.
Yeah.
Um, so Thrawn with the restore might be able to handle that. So there's a few options there. And what I will say for the flip turn is um, if you're not dealing with one of those aggregate wide, where yes, you're right, getting to 8 is getting to 8 resources is a challenge in those games. And if you got to an 8, you're probably going to win. But against more of a you know middle middle game, late game deck, you have some really good flip options, right? So you have if you're going red, you have the Cinta who plots out with the attack, so you're getting 2 units
Hmm.
and the attack with Thrawn right away, which can oftentimes be enough to have more units on the board. Or if you're going green, or just playing off aspects, you have Chancellor Palpatine who's dropping 3 units with the plot, right? So now
I do like
you're
that.
yeah. And I mean, if you're desperate, if you're green, you could theoretically do 2 palps, right? You could plot
Oh,
one
yeah.
and then plot the second one, kill the first one, and now you have four four sentinels plus palp plus Thrawn on the board. Um, so there are like once you get to that point, there are options. Um, and honestly, playing him, oftentimes I've seen myself not actually bringing him out until 9,
Oh.
because um, well, a single reactor ignition on
Hmm.
8, and then 9 you do the plot flip.
Mm, gotcha, gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so there are things. I think that partially just depends on the how aggro the game is, and or the meta is, I should say.
Right, right.
So I'm honestly I'm between a B and an A tier for him. Um, I think probably B tier reluctantly, but I feel like the right deck might really push him up to A tier. I do think he has the strongest leader side of any leader currently in Premier.
It is really strong potential, but I will also admit it is to some extent a bit of a win more, right? You must
Mhm.
already be up on units to start triggering this. Now, I think you
Mhm.
made some great points about things like Palpatine that are kind of pumping your own flood of small units in order to trigger this, and that um, I think runs less into kind of that win more category since those units are smaller, less impactful
Mhm.
on their own and that sort of thing. Um, so I'm willing to keep my eye open and revise my opinion as the time goes. But hey, where's the fun in a show like this if you don't make some really bold claims to get people listening?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I look honestly, if I could guarantee that SRI were in my single reactor ignition were in my hand every single game at 8 resources, I would confidently say A tier with Ron Red. But you
Uh-huh.
just can't
Uh-huh.
guarantee it.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's keep it moving here. I think we're moving along at a good clip and having some
Yeah.
good discussion.
Yeah. So yeah, coming over to next up, we have Luke Skywalker, Spotlight deck card or leader with Vigilance Heroism. So leader side, when a friendly unit's attack ends, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, heal 1 damage from that unit. And then he flips on 7 as a 6/7, and his when a friendly unit's attack ends, heal 2 damage from that unit or from your base. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and say he is somewhere between A or S tier. He is, my opinion, probably the second best leader in the set. Um, like it's just really solid. Like the the leader side lets you just fix math when you're trading units, things like that. Um, you know, if they attack your 2/4 with their 2/4, suddenly now you can, or if you attack their 2/4 with your 2/4, now it's 1 damage versus 2 damage, and they can't just attack you back, things like that, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and at the same time, he flips at 7, which is still, as you said, relatively late. But the fact that him and every other unit you have in play can then beat healing damage from your base, um, you can really quickly change the board state very, very fast when you get there.
I, this is one where I think we flipped back the other way, and I think we're very much on the same kind of page here. I think Luke. is in the running for best leader in this set from
Mm-hmm.
me for sure. Easily an A, and I agree, possibly an S tier here. He's relatively late, but that 6-7 stat line as a unit is huge. You do sacrifice a point of health, of course, but I think a lot of times by the time you're at this point in the game, the difference between 7 and 8 is pretty negligible. Um, but I do think that that break point of 5 to 6, not only in the units that can take out, but the pressure that puts on an opposing base in the late game, I think, is a substantial difference. And as well, his ability here, yes, you need some units on the board, but he can still work just off of himself on the unit side if need be. You, it doesn't necessarily feel as win more board position wise to me as Thrawn did. And kind of my final thought or note here is I also always love any leader that has a, it's not spelled out this way in the SWU rules, but has a reaction type effect rather than an
Mm-hmm.
action. The amount of extra value that this, or let's say the old Shadows CAD had, that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, Quinlan Voss, that type of thing, I think actually is huge. That really adds up over a game. There's no resource cost here, and there's effectively no action cost. It doesn't get much more efficient than that. You made great points on the trades, but I do also want to add he also, because of this heal, kind of mucks with some of the strengths of what I think will be some of the other strongest leaders in the field. He's going to muck with the new Cad Bane triggers.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to muck with Boba Fett's damage. He's going to muck with Aura and Talzin's ability to finish off something after doing some damage to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think he's just very, very well positioned.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely, yeah, I agree. There's there's plenty to be said there, and you can build them a lot of different ways too, right? Like there's with Force Jedi Rebel, um, like there's are you going to do a Force deck with him? Are you going to do like a Data Vault deck with him? Um, I could see Luke red, Luke green, probably not yellow, but I am happy to be wrong about that too. Um,
I mean, a Luke Yellow. Um, I mean, just getting to Liberty is always just really strong in heroic
oh,
yellow right
or,
now. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the thought line is there. I'd say Data Vault is one of the more intriguing ones to me at the moment.
mhm,
Already having the 33 health, and then one good turn of heals on his deploy side means you're probably effectively looking at something more like 40 health, and that's a
mhm.
lot.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, Data Vault is my biggest problem with Green Force. There is something very satisfying with being like, yes, I can drop Luke and Keller in, get the third unit,
Mhm.
and then be set up to drop Yoda next turn and heal for five.
Yeah,
Um, but that extra five health of Data Vault over the Force base is pretty compelling by itself.
agreed. Agreed. Well, base health is a whole nother discussion that, don't
Yes,
get
it
me
is.
started on right now. All right. Shall we kick to the
Yeah,
next one?
let's go. Yeah,
All right. Let's see. This one's back to me, right?
it is.
All right. We've got Sabine Wren. She's vigilance and heroic action. An opponent gives 2 advantage tokens to a unit they control. If they do, the next unit you play this phase gains shielded for this phase. Then she deploys on 5 and is a 3/5 with on attack. The next unit you play this phase gains shielded for this phase. You know, this is a leader that I feel like I've seen a lot of discussion about compared to some of the others, especially some others that I think are, let's say, kind of questionable. People seem to really be trying to weigh the cost, benefit analysis here, um, with Sabine, and I have to say I'm skeptical at the moment.
Mhm.
Um, Her stats are not great. I mean, they're not abysmal either, but just a 3.5 on 5 it seems to be below the rates we're looking at right now. And the you're effectively giving up two temporary upgrades to your opponent for you to get one temporary upgrade. Now, as far as card advantage value there, yes, shielded probably gets you more than an advantage token or even two advantage tokens do, strictly speaking. Um, but it does feel over the course of a game, that any little fluctuation is going to start making, the aggregate you're giving your opponent more than, you're getting out of this. And you can't even really work around it by, say, triggering it when they don't have a unit, because you only get the shield if they placed the advantage tokens.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe the best plan is maybe something a little bit like the old, uh, Ray decks, the old blue Ray that play a ton of like small heroic sentinels, and you're giving out some extra shields there, so your opponent has to attack into the shield and lose the advantage tokens while taking damage, but that just feels really fiddly to me. You know, gosh, I think this Sabine honestly is probably somewhere in the D range as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think there's a couple problems. Maybe the biggest one is just the fact that it has to be a unit you play this turn.
Yeah,
Um, which means, like, if you're playing a card like Blue Ace that readies an opponent's unit, but it ambushes when it's played, on attack, but it ambushes when it's played, you can be like, okay, I'm only attacking or ambushing something that I know I can defeat. I ready that thing and then I defeat it.
hmm,
And that feels like this wants to be doing. You want to be putting a shield on something, and then probably like advantage tokens on something that's exhausted, so that they can't just attack your base with it. Um, and like you said, the shielded sentinels help with that. Um, but then the other key problem is those ping damage leaders coming back. I keep on coming back to CAD.
yeah,
Um,
hmm,
Everything that makes Luke good in a matchup against CAD makes Sabine bad in a matchup against CAD. Right? You
yeah,
give them advantage tokens and you give yourself a shield. You play the unit. CAD pings the shield off the unit. Like, it's in that current like setup. It's really hard to really get that value, I think. So I'm
yeah,
going to agree with you. D range, um, she is like being Jedi and Spectre is interesting, but not Force. Like, thematically, that all makes sense. But then the same thing, it's like those traits. There's some of the Spectre things. There's the set 5 Ezra that lets you give an experience token to a Spectre unit and stuff like that. So there's
yeah,
some combos there with the Spectre that maybe help, but I think not enough to make up for her ability not being that great.
yeah.
So yeah, also a D.
I know we're talking premiere here, but I will say I think her stock goes up a lot in Twin Suns. So,
Hmm.
there's that for any Sabine fans out there.
Oh, absolutely. She feels like a Twin Suns leader.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be some deals to be made, spreading those
Hmm.
tokens out and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, and then thematically, you combine her with, either Hera or Set 5 Kanan, and
yeah.
yeah, there's some stuff to do there.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to also do some Twin Suns discussion at some point on here, but let's keep trucking through leaders. I feel bad that I'm inevitably gonna have to squish discussion here on things later in the set. So Yeah, let's
Oh,
roll.
totally fair. All right. So next up is Grand Admiral Sloane, who is command and villainy. Leader side, her action is choose one, essentially either space or ground, and every unit in that arena gets Sentinel and Overwhelm for this phase. Notably, every unit, yours and your opponent's. Um,
Yeah.
her a leader or her unit side, she flips at 5. She's a 4/5 Overwhelm, and each other friendly unit gains Overwhelm and Sentinel. Like, it's hypothetically interesting. You can really muck things down. Um, play whichever arena your opponent's playing in and just slow things to a slog, assuming they're not all saboteurs. Um, but I'm just not sure it works. I'm going to say at as a unit side coming out with 5 health, you just there's so much that she's vulnerable to. Um, you know, as long as you have 5/5 ambushes at 5, there's that's challenging, right? And maybe everything else is Sentinel,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter. She has less health, but you're doing it to both sides. She's a command leader, so you don't have the option to use Data Vault with her, which I think honestly would have been her best bet if she were, you know, blue or red or something like that. So I just don't see a build for her. Maybe this is one where I'm happy to be completely wrong. Someone's going to come up with an amazing deck, but right now I'm going to put her as a D.
No, I think that's reasonable. She feels like a puzzle that I want to solve. Right? This is an ability. When I first saw the spoilers, I looked at that and said, "Holy crap! Wait, what? That's
Mm-hmm.
insane!" And then, reading and thinking it through more and starting to kind of realize the trade offs of um, every unit attacking into each other like that. The forced sentinel everywhere sort of means that nothing has sentinel, at least on a unit front, but also means still nobody's going directly to base.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it I think might matter for how much you can leverage the overwhelm. Like it's if there's a build here, all of it is going to come down to can you find a way to make this asymmetrical. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's there. I do agree that the 4/5 body on 5 is a tough spot. The 5 to 6 health break point is really huge, and that 4/5 stat line almost makes her look like she wants to be an aggressive leader, but I'm not certain yet if the ability aligns with that. Maybe that's how you try to break parity here is really just trying to overwhelm as hard as you can and turn it into an aggro game of some kind. Um, I want to see her work. I'm going to give her a C in the end, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems fair. Like I said, I'd like to see her work too. I'm sure there's some mind that can put together a deck for that. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I'm not sure yet either. Okay, on to our
Yeah.
next one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm excited here to tackle Moff Gideon. Action: if a friendly Imperial unit was defeated this phase, play a unit from your hand. It costs one less. Then he deploys on 7 as a 5/8, and this unit gains each of the following keywords if it's on an Imperial unit in your discard pile: ambush, grit, hidden, overwhelm, saboteur, sentinel, shielded, and support. And I think I inadvertently skipped saying he's a command and villainy leader. And this is the one of the leaders I'm most excited to build with right now. Everything I think still applies about 7 being pretty late in the game. 5/8 stats though are still pretty great. and his ability to have a wide amount of keywords really ups the impact of that deploy. So something I feel like we've definitely seen since Secrets of Power released is that turns with a big plot effect, be that a Cinta or a Topple the Summit or something, um, where you can really increase the simultaneous value of that leader deploy, um, can really kind of swing or cement games. And I think Gideon has some of that same potential. As long as you can make it to the 7 resources, um, you're probably dropping him with something in the range of 3 keywords to be fairly conservative. I think some decks like the Gideon Red I've been tinkering with can probably do more, thanks to a little self, discard here. Um, but something like ambush or support, giving an extra attack of some kind off of that deploy, shielded to protect him. Man, an 8 health shielded leader is almost as unkillable as this game gets. Um, this is a fun, different kind of Voltron that I'm excited for. Will he quite really crack the top tier of competitive play? I think that remains to be seen. I'm probably giving him maybe the kind of the top of the B pile. Um, his uh, his leader side ability is some, I think, relatively usable and controllable resource acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see him bumping into A territory if we can kind of lock down some builds. But I'll go B for now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. He might be an A. He might be the very top of the B. In a lot of ways, he actually reminds me of Kylo from Set 5, um,
Yeah,
with that flip turn that kind of decides everything, right? Because, yeah, if you're talking about, and you say 8 health, he could, you're plotting stuff onto him. He could easily be a, 7-11.
true.
Um, uh, 7-11 ambush grit shielded support, so someone else is also getting, you know, whatever it is. There's like a lot of different things you can do with that flip action to really
Yeah.
change the board. Um, and so I will say I have not messed with him at all yet, but I feel like there is a deck. I don't know what that deck is, but it has a lot of potential to really surprise people if it's not part of the meta yet.
Oh yeah.
So
Agreed.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. Cool.
On to We are now to Command Heroism with Ahsoka Tano. Hers leader side action exhaust her to choose a unit with less power than a friendly unit. It gets +2/+0 for this phase. And she flips on 6 as a 5/6. And here we go, mentioning like the difference between a 4/5 on 5 and a 5/6 on 6. This feels so much more comfortable. Um,
Mhm.
but she has, as a unit, she has support, and on attack, you may give a unit with less power than this unit +2/+0 for this phase. So yeah, there's definitely something there that, like obviously that flip turn, where you can use her leader ability and then bring her out, and then she supports, so something else can attack and give that benefit, and then she can attack and give that benefit. That's +6 attack on her flip turn with no resource cost to do it. So it feels like there is definitely some potential there, but it also feels like it's interruptible. It requires you to have those things on the board. Um, and so is it a win more? Maybe a small win more. I don't think it's too unreasonable to say, okay, I'm going to have something on the board with a similar amount of Um, two things on the board at a given point, given things like you could drop Amidala, and then have her two. If you dropped Amidala and her two spies on, on five, and they're ready, there's something there. Um, I guess the thing that makes me hesitate though is just what is the rest of the deck around that, and how does that do in the meta? And I don't think there's anything that's, she's Force Jedi, so you could do green blue Force deck or something like that. Um, but I'm just not quite sure that deck is strong enough in the meta at this point. So I'm gonna give her like a low. I'll give her a low B. Maybe she's going to be a high C, but I'll give her a low B.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. You know, I am kind of interested to figure out this Ahsoka. I think um, our initial reactions with most of the guys I chat with um, were that we were pretty skeptical of Ahsoka at first for kind of that win more sort of aspect that you mentioned, but I think it is worth noting, as you kind of alluded to there, you just have to have something else on the board. You don't necessarily have to be ahead in total on board state.
Mm-hmm.
So a, there are a lot of games I've played, especially because I've played a bunch of Saw lately. That you are turning this into a race, even though attrition like is not your friend, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
single-minded assault here. And I think Ahsoka still does pretty well in that sort of realm. There's not many leaders available that are effectively doing two damage for an action and not even costing a resource for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a little bit of a targeting restriction as opposed to Saw. And obviously, you're not getting that overwhelm, but you're still getting to keep the unit afterward, which
Mm-hmm.
helps with that attrition a lot. So the more I kind of look and think about that, and the fact that the five attack on a six deploy body is so huge, and it's not like six health on a six deploy is unheard of. Would we rather maybe have seven for sure, but it's not actively below rate, I think. Um, so I think there's probably something here. I would be tempted to say that it's stronger in a deck that is not necessarily looking to chain on her deploy turn, or like it's not built toward just trying to gear up and find that combo, but just a relatively consistent, hey, I'm going to get an Ahsoka trigger turn after turn after turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be an aggro deck there putting a lot of pressure on. So I'm pretty willing to give her a B, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And thinking about it, if we are in a world of two fours for your turn one play, if
Hmm.
she can drop a Gunji or a Yaddle, your opponent drops something. Turn two, you're dropping something that has more than two attack. Now that Gunji or Yaddle can trade up essentially,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that alone does not put you in a bad place.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great point. If you can get over that hump to start with, gosh, if you're starting with initiative, for instance,
Hmm.
then you're probably in a pretty good spot to take advantage of that, um, and trade up for the whole game to keep your opponent on the back foot.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, if I compare it to set three Anakin, the big thing is just, yeah, it takes an extra action to do this as opposed to just getting it on the attack.
True, true, and that's definitely something to watch out for, um, and probably the sort of thing that if you get that early trade and leg up, you're probably in a much better spot to absorb the extra action trade off as the rest of the game goes. But if your opponent causes you to kind of stumble on that first one or two of these, you might be in a bad spot to really ever continue using it because of the action problem. That's a good point.
Hmm. Just to throw this out, we are on the halfway point at 105. Do we want to just split this into 2 episodes?
Yeah, maybe we do. Yeah, let's go ahead and split this into 2 episodes then. Gosh, a few of those leaders I really thought we were making good time on, but
Hmm.
18 leaders is just still a lot of cards to chat about. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I honestly was thinking the same. I was like, this is going to be completely fine. I'll do it in 45 minutes, and here we are halfway.
yeah, yeah. I felt much more positive. It was an ambitious reach here to tackle everything.
Hmm.
So okay, well, yeah, that sounds good. Listeners, how about you join us for another episode shortly once Alex and I off air iron out when we can record that,
Hmm.
and we will tackle the back half, starting with let's see, Bo Katan, and moving on from there. Uh, Thanks for joining us, and Alex, any parting thoughts here on the episode, Ashes, the leaders we've hit on? Anything at all you want to say before we call it a day?
Mostly, I would say this is an exciting set. I know we've kind of gone across the board as far as tiers go, but there's a lot of interesting leaders in this set that are doing different things. And well, we were both sad about Fennec. Um, yeah, there's been some juice, and I think that's true for the second half as well. So I'm excited to talk about them. And honestly, I've really enjoyed being on with you. So I'm looking forward to another video.
Sounds awesome. Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about them as well, and agreed. There's a wide variety of interesting stuff in this set. So, listeners, viewers, we will be back with you soon.